Hello and welcome back to Let's Talk God. It's been an amazing journey so far. I know you've been blessed. We've been blessed by having each and every one of you on this program. Today we have an amazing topic for you. We've been flowing through our relationship aspects based on what's going on in the world in the present day and how relationship has been battled and be attacked constantly. We've seen so many things on social platforms, on personal experiences about relationship. And I feel there's a serious fundamental that's missing, rather a fundamental that's not communicated, that's causing this issue. So today we're going to focus on leadership versus dictatorship. That's leadership versus dictatorship. Now, this aspect I'm going to focus on the men. The reason for this is that being a man, it is vital that you understand your office. Every man has to understand his office, his area of focus, where God has ordained him to be in his household. As a man, as a husband, as a leader, also as the head of your family. Be it married, be it you're in a relationship, it does not matter. Once you're a man and you're in a relationship and someone is under your care, being a woman, you have an office. That's the first thing you have to understand. Now, let's look at it this way. In the book of Genesis, with Adam and Eve, it says Adam was put in a garden to tend the garden, to tend to it. What does it mean to tend to a garden? It means to look after it. Now, you can look at the garden as a woman. A man's natural disposure, a man's natural habitat is to look after something that has been put into his care. But nowadays we're looking and we're seeing different aspects where men have forsaken the aspect of care, the aspect of tending, the aspect of presenting something back better than they received it. I've heard so many things, I've seen so many atrocious situations where men have lost the understanding of what the office is and what the mandate is. And no matter how intelligent you think you are, if you do not understand your office as a man, you will lose it. You will lose it entirely. So now, one aspect I've seen is the aspect of talking. As a man, once you can out-talk your spouse, once you can out-talk a woman, there's a fundamental problem there already. Naturally, as a woman is built and designed to outspeak, to out-talk you. Now, don't get that wrong. I'm not saying that women speak so much or talk too much. A woman is disposed to say more words in her vocabulary per day than a man is. But as a man, once you choose and you find yourself you're out talking, out nagging, out shouting a woman, out shouting your spouse, you've already lost. And you've lost that office. You've lost the understanding of the office. First duty is to tend and to care. If a woman is speaking, she speaks out of her heart. She unloads, she unburdens her heart. She's speaking so you can understand, so you can give her value to be able to edify her. But the moment she's speaking, you see it as nagging. But when you can understand your office as a man, that you're meant to tend to her, you're meant to look after her, you're meant to present her back better than you met her, you understand when she speaks, it's not to complain, but she's speaking out of fear. She's speaking out of nervousness. Now, there's something I believe. I believe when a woman nags you, you should be happy. Now, when I say happy, I'm not meaning you should rejoice, because of course, being human, the nagging could be annoying. But when she nags, it means she cares. Because a woman only nags someone that she cares about, that she sees as her husband, her friend, her spouse, her family. You should be worried when she stops nagging. That's where the problem is. It means she no longer cares. That's where your worry should come in. But when she's speaking and she's talking and you feel she's talking too much, take your time back and listen to what she's trying to say. Sometimes she might not communicate herself well. That is where wisdom comes in. That's where your disposition as leader, as the head of the household comes in, where you're meant to understand what she's trying to say. Sift through the mess, sift through the noise, and understand where's her fear coming from. Most of the time when a woman nags, it's out of fear. She's worried about something. Put your pride to the side as a man. Put your ego to the side as a man. At that moment, it might be difficult. I'm not saying yes, immediately you have the answer. But just take a step back. Don't outspeak her. Don't out-talk her. Let her get it off her chest. Because one thing you find out about a woman, as much as they speak, they do not hold on to things. But men, we do not speak as much, but we can hold on to something like a Pandora box. And before we let it go, it could be years. So when a woman speaks, she's unloading her heart to you. She's unloading her fears. And you, as the tender, as a caregiver of that garden, the garden meaning her, it is your duty to make sure she's okay. It's your duty to make sure that the garden is beautiful at all times. That is by what you say after she has spoken. Now, leadership is not something you say, I'm telling you to do this. That is not leadership. Leadership doesn't move by saying. Leadership moves by doing. When you say, do this, do that, that is dictatorship. Yes, your office as a man is to be the head, to be the leader, but the leader and the head comes with sacrifice, not with dictatorship. So when you find yourself as a man dictating to your spouse, saying, I told you to do this, I told you to do that, you're not setting a good example of a leader. It's dictatorship. But when you can do what you're telling her to do, when you can show her by your leadership, when you can show her you're a man of integrity, when you can show her you're a faithful man, you cannot say, I am faithful. You can't tell her you're faithful. You have to show her you're faithful. You cannot tell her that you're a great leader. You have to show her you're a great leader by your actions, by track record. Women are moved by what they see, through what they hear. So don't feel speaking is enough. You must show. So if you're saying, I've told you, I've told you, I've told you, you end up getting to a point where you might become violent as a man. And that's not what you're disposed to do from the Father himself. That's not what you're created to do. No matter what the situation is, tend to the garden. Look at your wife, look at your spouse as a garden. First of all, it starts off rough. You have to dig the soil. You have to plant the seed. You have to water it. It doesn't become beautiful as you're working on it. It becomes beautiful as you tend to it, as you water it, as you spend time with it, because you know the end from the beginning. From that ashes, from that soil, from that dirtiness, from that mess, the beauty of the garden will come out. Why? Because you tend to it as a man. Through what? Leadership. Through leadership. Now, one thing I will advise you men is that you were never promised perfection. You were never promised perfection. You were promised a helper. You were promised a companion, but not perfection. So we find ourselves in a scenario where we expect we need to have her ready-made. She needs to be a good listener. She needs to be quiet when I'm speaking. She shouldn't raise her voice. She shouldn't speak until I tell her to speak. That's what we're looking for. That's what you're looking for as a man, but that is not what God ordained for you as a helper. He didn't ordain a mute. He didn't ordain someone that doesn't have her own faculties. He ordained a helper, a companion, which means you're the one to mold her. Let's look at this in the scriptures. Ephesians 5, we're going to take it from 24 to 27. And it says, husband, love your wife as Christ loves the church and give himself to it, that he might sanctify and cleanse it by the washing of the word. Husband, love your wife as Christ loved the church. But the key word I want you to focus on here is that he might cleanse it by the washing of the word. What does that mean? What you say to her, how you speak to her. Your wife needs to hear, your spouse needs to hear that she's beautiful every day. She needs to hear that she's amazing. She needs to hear she's a great mother. She needs to hear she's a great wife. She needs to hear that she's the best thing that's ever happened to you. That is what's called washing by the word. Until you get to that point where you understand your wife needs to be renewed daily by the washing of the word, you cannot present her back to yourself sanctified. Because it's what you put in a woman, she'll give back to you. If you put deceit in her, if you put hatred, if you put anger in her, she will present that back to you 10 times fold. But if you wash her by the word that edifies her spirit, she will act in accordance to what you say, even if she's not even displaying that at the present moment. Speak faith into her by the word. If she's a woman that nags a lot, if she's a spouse that nags a lot, speak to her. Say, you know what? You're an amazing person. I love the fact that you speak and communicate your fears. I love how you speak. I love how you sound. Eventually, she will align to what you say, because remember, as a man, you are a creator, because God created in his image and likeness. So what you say, you give life to. So are you speaking life into your spouse as a man, or are you speaking death into her? Because she will give that back to you, because don't forget, she's the one that can take the seed and produce a result from the seed you gave her. So whatever seed you're speaking into her life, she will give that back to you. So if you have a wife that's constantly bitter, if you have a wife that's constantly nagging, if you have a wife that's even violent, or a spouse that's violent, it is the seed you have planted into her. That's what she's bringing back to you. Let's go back into 27. It says that he might present her to himself, not to God. He might present her back to himself, a glorious church. Now let's look at this way. For church means her. It means your spouse. It means your wife. That he may present her back to himself, a glorious church, not having spots or wrinkle or any such thing, but that she should be holy, without blemish. So the key word is here. You must present her back to yourself. You're not presenting her back to God, because God has already given her to you. Now you have work to do. Don't forget, the church was not perfect when it was presented to Christ. Christ had to mold the church. Christ had to speak into the church for what he wants to see in the church. And that's why the church is what we see today. So when you have your spouse, be you're married or you're not married, but as long as you're in a relationship, it is what you put into her that she will bring back out to you. You put a seed in her, she brings a baby, she brings a child into the world. You give her a house, she makes it a home. You give her ingredients, she makes it a meal. You give her a negative word, she will bring back a conglomerate of issues for you. It's what you give her, she will give back to you. So you have to present her back to yourself. So whatever you want to see your wife, however you want to see your spouse, whatever you crave in your spouse, you have to speak it into her. You have to mold it into her. How? Not by saying, but by doing. By showing yourself worthy, by showing yourself faithful as a man. Be a good leader, not a dictator. Because Christ himself did not get a good deal with the church. Matter of fact, the church got him killed, but he was willing to die for the church. How many of you men are willing to die for your wife today? And when I say die, not just physically, but emotionally. How many of you are willing to kill your pride, kill your ego? Don't focus on winning a battle. Don't focus on winning an argument, because when you win an argument with your wife, you have already lost, because you're one flesh. You're arguing with yourself. So when you win, you've lost. The focus here is to present her back to yourself without blemish. Without blemish. Now, this is why Paul himself said that this is a mystery. Marriage is a mystery. From all the wisdom that Paul had, from all the exposure he had, from the miracles he did, from the conversation he had with God himself, marriage was not revealed to him. The mystery of marriage was not revealed to him. So if Paul himself did not understand the mystery of marriage, the covenant of marriage, why are you going to people? We have lost our way as men, and we must find it back, because our generation yearns for men to rise up in these last days as leaders, not dictators. The moment you have to raise your hands, the moment you have to raise your voice to your spouse, you have lost every ability and what God ordained to put in you in your office as leader. Let's focus on what the word says we are, so we can present our wife back to us in the way Christ intended. Thank you so much for joining us today on Let's Talk God. It's been amazing having you. I hope you are blessed by the word. Stay blessed. Thank you. Don't forget, you can always find us every Tuesday, 6 p.m. on the dot. Don't be late. On www.tostvnetwork.com. Also on our social media handle at TOSTV Network. And on my personal Instagram handle at Mr. Okonkwo. Remain blessed and God bless you.